Hello everybody and welcome along to the opening round of season 32. This is the top tier of the PlayStation platform and we are very excited to get underway after our short break in between seasons. And welcome to the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya this evening for the Spanish Grand Prix. What hasn't changed is who's in the commentary box. My name is Jess Ball and joining me once again for his third season in the top tier, we've got Mr. Aidan Carter. How you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. I can't believe it's my third season. It feels like I haven't been here that long, so it's wild to think that we're on my third season already. But yeah, super excited to get going again for season 32. It's looking very promising, definitely, with the lineup that we've got coming into this season. We already predicted at the end of season 31 that this grid was going to be really, really exciting, and it's definitely proven that with the lineup that we've got tonight. So yeah, I'm really excited and I'm really looking forward to seeing how these drivers get on tonight around the Circuit of Barcelona.
Yes, and I'm liking the lineup that we are seeing for this season. There's a few drivers that have proved themselves in F1 and still in F1 for another season. We've got some F2 drivers in there, and we've got a few F3 drivers as well. We've got two champions in this grid tonight for this season, so it'll be interesting to see how it all turns out. And I believe I have got a lineup somewhere, if I can find it. There we go. So this is your lineup for this season, as well as our reserve drivers. It doesn't say the teams in there, but I'll go through the teams in just a moment. We've got Tom and Brock in the Mercedes. Obviously Tom had first team pick, so he went with the Mercedes just like last season. In the Ferrari we've got Legend and Orgiano, both from Talent Factory, and Legend is finally a full-time race driver in F1, looking to be one of the favourites to take the title in F1 along with Tom. In the McLaren, another Talent Factory lineup, we got Rudy and Frankie. Of course, Rudy doing very, very well last season, got promoted from F3 a few seasons ago, and now he's absolutely the one to beat along with Legend and Tom as well. And we got our F2 champion from last season, Frankie, and he won off, I think, a few rounds before the end, so it'll be good to see how he does in the top tier of F1. No pressure on him on anything, but Tom was the F2 champion in season 30, and then he was second in the championship in F1. But to be honest, it may be a little bit of a struggle for him, but we'll have to wait and see. In the AlphaTauri, we've got Asacombe and Ray, and I think Ray's here tonight, I'm not entirely sure. In the Alpine, we got Cazizzo and Louis. In the Aston Martin, we got Rowan and Jensen. In the Williams, we got Fabi and Markados. In the Red Bull, we got Namaya after a very strong form towards the end of last season. And Marlon, Marlon, I believe, was the F3 champion from last season, and he's looking to follow in Rudy's footsteps. In the Haas, we got Chiquita, who unfortunately is not here tonight, and he's got Elia alongside him in the Haas. And in the Alfa Romeo, two drivers have got promoted from F2. We've got Narup and Nando, both of them doing very well last season. And of course, we've got a few reserves. We've got Romaninho, just like last season, Luca Kart, Surface, and Prinen's a name that I know quite familiarly as well. And we did ask on Twitter who you think should be crowned champion, but I can't put it past Legend at the moment. His form last season was absolutely fantastic towards the end. He now has a full-time seat. The motivation is really on his shoulders, but it can be quite close with the others as well. So I'm very excited.
Yeah, I'm really excited as well. Like you say, Legend ended off last season with some really astonishing performances. His performance, I think a lot of people remember his performance in the wet at the Circuit of the Americas at the end of last season, was one of the most dominant performances I think we've ever seen in PSGL F1. It was such a strong performance, and he won multiple times at the end of last season. He was the only driver, I believe. He was the only driver other than obviously our champion Dinoco to win multiple races, if I remember correctly. He had such a strong into the season, so it's nice to see him be able to get that full-time seat this time around, and he's definitely the one to beat, I would say, going into this season. There's obviously people up there as well. Tom, of course, who finished second in the championship, he'll definitely be one to look out for as well. There's a lot of drivers with some good pace that if they can string together a few good results can be challenging. People like Namaya and Asacombe as well, who had great ends to the season, who could have the pace to challenge as well. So yeah, it's really exciting. Going to be a really, really interesting season.
I'm seeing in the chat lots of support from my F3 champion Marlon as well, which is good to see, and we've got support from Tom Robbo as well. But without further ado, we are going to go straight into the action. But before that, we'll go through the calendar very quickly as to what the drivers will be racing at this season. So obviously, we're at Spain tonight. Then, of course, we got our break week because on Sunday, of course, we've got the Brazilian Grand Prix, and it's only fair that the PS tiers will have the same break week as normal. So, no race next week. But on the 21st of November, we got Bahrain. On the 28th of November, we got Zandvoort. Zandvoort, I believe, was not on the calendar last season, so should be interesting there. And we got Canada on the 5th of December. Unfortunately, that's the race I'm going to be missing due to me being in a show that week, so I'm absolutely gutted. Then we go to Aidan's favourite track of Monaco for the 12th of December. Then we go to Silverstone to wrap off the year on the 22nd. Then we got a few weeks break for Christmas. Then we got Portugal, which is my favourite track on the calendar, not going to lie, on the 9th of January. 16th of January, we've got Belgium, and we got Australia, the newly profiled Australia. Then we got United States, and then we got Abu Dhabi. So I won't keep you in suspense long. Here is the action here today, here at the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya, which has also had many changes. In particular, turn 10 is not as windy anymore. There's a lot more overtakes you can have around the circuit as well. And one thing you probably won't notice yet, but you've noticed in the other tiers, there's more flexibility in the tyres as well. They can go on the mediums or the hards if they want to in qualifying. And if they don't use their set of mediums or hards in the race, they've got an extra set to use, fresh set to use in the race. So that's very, very exciting. But I'm trying to think who is filling in for Chiquita. I'll need to double check that in just a moment. But it's Romaninho who's filling in our most our reserve driver that's filled in for a lot of drivers last season, so good to have him back as well. But what do you think about the newly profiled Spanish Grand Prix?
I really enjoy it. I think a lot of people kind of had a lot of gripes, especially in real life, with this track about it being a bit of a procession. I think as well, with it being one of the testing tracks, didn't help. It made the races quite stale, definitely, as Fabi is the first driver to finish a lap time on a 16.7 in the Williams this season. He was in the Red Bull last season. He's now in the Williams. But yeah, I think the change to turn 10 is definitely nice. It does add a little bit extra of a flow to the final sector. It's made the final sector, I'd say, a little bit less fiddly. And of course, it's got rid of that awful bump on the inside of turn 11 that caught out so many drivers in the past. So it's definitely added a nice flow to the circuit, and personally for me, it's another favourite of mine. I do enjoy this track a lot, as all the times are coming in now, and not a surprise after the early runs, after the first ones are coming in, it's not a surprise to see Cazizzo at the top of the timesheets, is it? He was the pole winner for last season, got the most poles, I believe, of any driver last season, and did a really, really strong job in qualifying. Couldn't always translate it in race conditions, but it's a new season, he's in a new car with a new teammate. We'll see what he can do this time around, and he's already nearly 2/10 clear at the top of the timesheets. But as I say that, Namaya goes just that little bit faster.
Yeah, so we're already seeing people into the low 160s already. We could see people in the 115s. Now, we did ask drivers about people's expectations for the season, and Cazizzo spoke to me and said he was very disappointed about how his poles were not converted into wins mostly, and he really wants to be fighting for wins this season, and many pushing for the top fives to really prove to himself that he's not just a quali merchant in this league, but more of a race merchant as well. So we'll see if he can manage to improve on that as well. Quite a few people want to fight for the championship. Olgiano is one of those drivers, and of course Frankie wanting to improve to prove to everybody that he belongs in F1. Frankie at the moment is currently down in P15, so hasn't set a time which is close to pole yet, but again he's finding a little bit of his feet as well. Elia also wants to score as many points as possible. Marlon wants to finish as high as possible every race, and to be honest, that's a good trade to have. And him being in 5th place and being the F3 champion, I have to say, he is the standout so far, as well as Marcos. Legend only P3 though, but it's still a long way to go. But very impressed with what Marlon is doing so far with his first outing in the top tier.
Yeah, like you said earlier on, he's definitely following in the footsteps of Rudy already, isn't he? Going against his first race of the season, Rudy obviously came in as the F3 champion, I believe, from season 30, and just was so strong last season, especially towards the latter stages, just so consistently fast. Of course, kind of fell out. He was the last person that was within championship contention, I believe, towards the end of the season, and just couldn't quite keep within range, only because of a lack of attendance towards the end of the season. But he was really, really strong. And Marlon again, leading off where he's with a good start to the session. Another driver as well that really struggled, you've got to say, the first half of season 31, but really stepped up their game in the second half of season 31 was Marquez, wasn't he? He was kind of one of those drivers that was a little bit on the chopping block going into this season as to whether they were staying in F1 or being demoted back down to F2. Of course, he came up from F3 the season previous to that as well. And yeah, really struggled in the first half of the season, but I think the Kota race was definitely a standout for Marquez, finishing fourth in that race in the wet conditions, did a really, really solid job. And since then has found a new lease of life, I think, on this game, which is really, really nice to see. So it's nice to see him up there once again as well. Was just looking at the timing gaps from Marquez in P4. Look how close it is for Marquez down to Romaninho in 18th. That is just over 0.4 of a second, separating 4th down to 18th position. We've just got Elio and Ogiano, who don't have representative times on the board yet. Namai Kazis and Legend are just a little bit further out in front. So the mid-pack at the moment is incredibly congested.
And that is very great to see as well. And that is why Connor and Louis always take a lot of time when it goes to putting drivers into tiers as well. And it shows that they've been doing the right thing with all the drivers separated by 0.8 per second. I can't remember what the pole time was in F2, but I know I think it was in the 1:16 range, I believe. It might be 1:15s, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it will be quite intense to see who will be fastest. And Asakome as well, I was expecting him to be up there, but he's only set a lap time competitive for P6 at the moment. He goes out again on another lap. At the start of the season, he was a man who did very well at the start of qualifying, was topping most of the session, and then we had someone like Fowles, for example, who did quite well toward the end of the session. Obviously, Danerko as well, who Danerko's on PCF2 now, which you can find on Wednesday evenings at 8 o'clock, where Luke Etheridge and Chris Buxton will be taking you through that action. So good luck to Danerko on his first outing properly in PC for time. And also he got a development driving Ferrari too, so no surprise on what team he's going to be racing in that tier this season. But yeah, Asakome, I think, really another driver who's got a point to prove as well, with him only being in P6 as he heads towards a newly profiled turn 10, and he's purple sector 2, so probably he's got a new lease of life with my positive psychology there as he heads towards turn 12 and 13 as well. And heading towards the end of the lap as well, there's hardly any bump going through that chicane, as luckily the ghosting system is on with a Red Bull spinning, but there's hardly any bump, which is good, because I raced a race on Saturday and there was so much difference and I gained a little bit more time as a result. So Asakome up to the line, that's more like it for the AlphaTauri driver, puts himself into P2. We've got a Williams driver, I believe, who's about to finish a lap, or he's probably in the pits or something, I'm not entirely sure, but we got more drivers on runs. We got Tom only in 8th for the moment, but his teammate of Brock about to finish off his run. We got Nando as well, who got promoted from F2, and that's a very strong showing for him, a good lap from him, 1:16.3, and for what James told me earlier on as well, that he's another impressive driver, got a few wins last season as well, and was really competitive with the likes of Frankie as well, and there was some moments where he could have been in championship contention, but there was a few mistakes from him that costed him the title, unfortunately, as well. But let's see how he manages the rest of the session as well. And Rowan came across the line in P3, so a good lap from him. And I think I just saw someone else cross the line. I wasn't quite sure who that was, but they just moved up as well. So good to see the new drivers very well, but no one seems to be beating the Myers time at the moment. 1:16.1 is the time to beat.
Yeah, he's not actually been able to go out for that second run yet either. He's just on his outlap at the moment. So, yeah, still with everybody's seconds runs coming in, not able to improve. It was Nawarp that had improved previously to P8, now P9, as Ray has gone up into 6th position in the other AlphaTauri. So good, strong showing so far from AlphaTauri. Just on board with Brock, who's a 10th and a half up in the middle sector. So coming towards the end of the lap now. In the final sector is where you'll find the majority of your time around here. Doesn't find any extra time in the final sector, but still goes back inside the top 10 into P9. So not a bad lap on the board there for Brock, who was, of course, a race winner last season as well. So we'll see, interested to see what Brock can do and what the Mercedes team can do. The Mercedes team completely unchanged, like you mentioned earlier on, from last season. So be interesting to see how they can develop and how they perform this time around. Of course, they were manufacturers' competitors all the way through last season. So we'll see if they can repeat that this time around. And just seeing who else is on a lap at the moment. We've just got people kind of starting laps as Legend now goes to the top of the timesheets, as you would kind of expect in the Ferrari, but only by 12 thousandths of a second is at the top of the timesheet. timesheets, and Namaya's already found 16 thousandths of a second in the first sector on his latest run. He's sliding the car coming out of turn 5 is the Red Bull. He's pushing like crazy, it seems. But yeah, Legend to the top of the timesheets. Can Namaya respond to it, clobbering that new sausage curb on the outside of turn number 7 there as he gets through turn 9 and then down this back straight, the short DRS zone on this track, crosses the second sector split, and he's now 6 thousandths down. So maybe a little bit too messy in that middle sector from the Red Bull driver of Namaya, not quite getting the forward momentum he needs out of that middle sector.
Yeah, he wasn't as comfortable at the moment. You've got to be careful about track limits as well. The stewards are keeping an eye on it, of course, but Namaya seems to be a lot better in the final sector, but I think all that counts for him is the last lap that he does towards the end of the session. And yes, he's only a few 100s down. He lost a bit of time in the final sector too. So only P2 for him still. And I'm sure there are many drivers that could beat that Brock in P11. And a few more drivers moving up. We have a Haas driver has moved up. And we've got an Aston Martin of Rowan who's about to come across the final corner now as well. And there was a few people that put him as the rivals for this season, but I think Rowan has got another point to prove as well. He is about to start his run, actually. I thought the game said he was on a run, but he's not on a run. Meanwhile, we've got a Haas of Elia, who is just about to start his run too. There's most people starting their runs at the moment. I think Marlon starting his run too in the Red Bull. So yeah, just people finding their feet a little bit. First hosted a race in Formula 1 since 1992, mostly known as being a test circuit, and it's very demanding in terms of tyre wear, as well as the aerodynamic qualities side of things, as well as the wind changes every time in real life as well. But obviously they don't have an effect on the game as much as well. 66 laps in a 100% race, which totaled to around about 33 laps in a 50% race, 16 turns. And Max Verstappen has won a few races here as well, Lewis Hamilton as well. And it's a track that doesn't provide much overtaking in real life, but in league racing, absolutely phenomenal, I have to say. And we saw a little bit of overtaking in F2. We got more drivers finishing off their runs. We got Anando, who's in P10 at the moment, but his teammate Narab up to the line in P14 at the moment. He only needs to find a few attempts to get pole position. That's how close it is at the moment in F1. But he is going down the long straight and towards turn number 1, so I'm sure he'll find another run very, very soon. Fabi up to the line, P14 for him, and Marlon, our F3 champion, displaces the championship favourite in P1 at the moment, and Ascombe said, if anything you could do, I could do better, and it's a 1:16.1 as well. The top 5 separated by less than a few 100ths of a second. It's absolutely crazy. And then we got Tom and Rowan quite close as well. That is very, very exciting heading to the final few minutes of the session. I think we also have, one of the Alpines finishing off their run as well. No, but it's because he's going into the pit. So Ascombe on top, as we head to the final part of qualifying. And Marlon in P2, Legend in P3. I can't call it at the moment, but I'd like you to tell us in chat who you think is going to get pole position. And I'm going to ask the same question to you, Aiden. Who do you think is going to get pole position?
Oh gosh, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because for so many reasons, so many different drivers inside the top, 8, you can say, really look really strong in this qualifying session. As Nawarp in the Alfa Romeo, who was slightly up on his time, has just dropped the car in the final sector and hit the wall. Not out of the session, but has lost their front wing, so that'll be quickly back into the pit lane for the Red Bull driver. He should just have enough time left on the board to be able to get back out for another run, so that's not too much of a worry for Nawarp in that sense. But yeah, looking to this top 5, I was on board with Ascombe for his lap. And he actually did make a little bit of an error in the middle sector. He did clobber that sausage curb on the outside of turn 7 inside of turn 8, and it did unsettle the car just that little bit. So there is I would say at least half a tenth of a second on the board still there for Ascombe. So for me, I'm going to say Ascombe's going to take the first pole position of the season, but I would say beyond that, you can say pretty much anyone of the top 8 has credentials to easily take pole position here, can't you? And there's drivers further down, like Markados, who held the provisional pole briefly earlier on in this session, who hasn't improved since and is down in 14th. So you know they've definitely got more time on the board.
Yes, the top 18 separated by less than 5/10 a second. Then we got Frankie that's separated by 6/10 a second as well. And it just takes a small margin of error to not get pole position today. That's how close it is. And because it's on a mile 1,000th ahead of each other, which I have to say is quite insane. And that kind of reminds me of F1 esports as well. The amount of practice the F1 esports drivers have to do for every race. They have to do the same in PSGL to really stay in the top tier for a very long time. It's not just what we do, what I do when you turn up to a race and that's it. They start practicing for the next race, most of them, pretty much tomorrow. But they have a bit longer, obviously, due to the break week. But they do start to use the time that they have. And just a note in the chat, thank you, Connor, for putting that out. Oggiano's brake has unfortunately broken his brake pedal, so he won't be racing for the rest of this evening, so it will count as a did not start for him. But he did say a qualifying lap, so at least that's out the way. So that's why, obviously, he did a lap which was 14 seconds behind. So that's a bit of a shame. Obviously, a driver who wants to challenge for the championship too, but you know, he's got a lot of races. It's quite a long season, so yeah, but a bit of a shame. But if you're wondering why Oggiano is not here, that is why, as Ray has retired, as he's binned it at the start of turn 2 and 3. He's retired the car on track. I don't think you're meant to do that. I think that's him, or yeah. No. So I think he may get punished for that. But yeah, everyone's about to start their runs now, as a few people are on banker laps at the moment, even though that it says they're not, just to get a bit of tyre life in them. So it's going to be interesting to see who will come out on top. And we've got a few drivers about to start them. And look at the traffic in the final sector. I wouldn't envy them, to be honest. I think they've got to do a gentleman's agreement here and find a little bit of space.
Yeah, they really do. It's awful as well. If anybody went out a little bit earlier and started their run, they'd come across so many cars in the final sector. You're pretty much guaranteed to be blocked if you did go a little bit earlier. One thing I did note, Markados decided to do 2 warm-up laps for his qualifying session, so he's clearly trying to get as much fuel out of that car as possible before starting the lap. So we'll see if that gives him any sort of improvement. But we are now starting these final runs, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, it is Jensen who is the furthest along on a lap at the moment, then currently heading towards the end of the second sector. 3,000's down in the first sector, so no improvement there, and no improvement in the middle sector either, and misses the apex ever so slightly of turn 10. So far for this lap for Jensen, not looking too great, unfortunately. It's not looked very clean, and his Aston Martin teammate Rowan has made a mistake in the middle sector. He's backed off as well, so looks like the Aston Martin's qualifying sessions could be cut short here unless Jensen can find any sort of meaningful time in this final sector. I mean, he gains 300ths of a second and he goes up 3 places. We'll see what he can find in the final sector. He finds 200ths of a second, but only goes up ahead of Elia, and Elia's on a lap at the moment, but Elia has also backed off.
Yes, we've got people on their final runs at the moment, as Fabi only can get P11. Rudy, what can he do in P8? He doesn't improve on his position, but he improves a little bit on his lap time. Next across the line is Nando in P13 at the moment. His teammate has crossed the line as well. Can only manage 9th now there, but he's improved on this time. I think someone else has just improved time. Markados to P2. That's impressive for him. Rowan could not improve. What about Nando then? He's backed off a little bit, so he wasn't able to find a bit more time. Oggiano's teammate Legend, who could be the favourite to take pole, unfortunately does not take pole. 69,000 slower than Asacombe at the moment. So we got Marlon, who I believe is backed off. Yes, he's backed off, so he will not be improving, unfortunately. I think Elia in P15, he's going into the pit. I'm trying to see if anyone else is on a lap. Doesn't look like it. So an anticlimactic end to the qualifying session. And for the first time in a while, Ascombe is on pole position. Nobody, it seemed, improved on their final runs.
Yeah, the only 2 drivers that really improved on their final runs were Nemaya and Markados in the end. They were the only ones that found that time. So that extra warm-up lap that Markados did work to treat. He went from 15th to 3rd. That was a brilliant little strategy there for Markados to get as much fuel out of the car as possible before the start of this one. But yeah, a lot of drivers making mistakes on their final run. I saw Legend making a mistake in the middle sector. Marlon as well also making a mistake there. Of course, we saw Elia and Rowan both making mistakes in the middle sector as well. So yeah, a lot of drivers there kind of leaving it to the last minute for the final runs and not getting the time in when they needed to, and Asacombe had enough in the bank to be able to hold on.
Just look at the gap between the top 6. Wow. 7 100ths of a second, and we got the top 3 separated by almost 5 100ths of a second. Welcome to PSF1, folks, where I think it's going to be even closer than ever. So watch out. And I think I wasn't expecting it to be this close in the Spanish Grand Prix. I was expecting it to be close and even more shorter layouts, but we'll have to wait and see. So Ascombe on pole. We got Namaya in second, Markados third, Marlon making an impressive debut in fourth. And we got Cazidor, Legend, Tom, Rowan, Rudy, Brock, Narup, Ray, Jensen, Fabi, Elia, Nando, Romanino, Louis, Frankie, and obviously Orgiano will be having a do not start because unfortunately his brake pedals have failed, so he won't be racing in for another 2 weeks. But before we head to the race, let's have a quick word from our title sponsor, GT Omega. We will see you in 30 seconds. Hello guys and welcome back to PSF1, brought to you by GT Omega. We got myself, Jeff Spore, and Aidan Carter taking you through the action here this evening, and we've had a really impressive qualifying session with the top few separated by a few 100ths of a second. I have to say that's absolutely crazy, and we are looking forward to seeing the action. We've got quite a few supporters in the chat as well, and we got a few familiar faces as well, so good to have you on board as well. And by the way, if you want to check out our some GT Omega products, you can click the link in the description where you can get 5% off all GT Omega products by using the code PSGL as a discount, so make sure you check those out. But we are about to get underway for the race. No formation, I believe, so we are going to go straight into racing, and it looks like it's going to be a dry race, so looking forward to that. And it's good to see our F1 champion from last season in the chat as well. Hello Danerka, how you doing? Great to see you. Best of luck in F2 on Thursday on the PC side. But we are about to see 19 drivers take to the circuit, the Barcelona, Catalunya. The 5 red lights are on. Assacomb's on pole. And we are underway. Let's see who has a decent start out of both of these drivers. Ascombe has a better getaway, but let's see if Namaya can get the straight line speed end round towards turn number 1. A few people almost running off the road here as well. This is going to be a long run here as well, but Ascombe just about covers everybody off so far, as Marlon has had a good start in P4, because he all had a good start as well, trying to go down the inside of Legend up into P5, but they all head down towards turn number 4. No trouble so far, but we do see Rudy trying to go down the inside there as well, but to no avail, unfortunately, as people are just taking a bit cautious so far. But there's a few people taking a lot of risks, and saying that, unfortunately, Frankie and Nando have had a bit of coming together. Nando's dropped down into last place at the moment, as we're starting to see most people on those hard sides, a lot of people on the mediums, as Legend has dropped down to 9th. He was struggling a little bit there, no spins from him, but there's just a lot of people being very aggressive, wanting to get past people very, very quickly, as we're trying to see. Oh, there's a bit of a touch between Brock and Legend there, heading down towards turn number 10. They're going very feisty here so far, this midfield pack so far, and everyone else is just running away with it so far, as Legend has had the bad start out of anyone, to be honest, as I was expecting him to pretty much be on top of things, being on the millions. But Asacombe keeping his nerve, Namaya in second, and Markados in P3, the top 3 staying as they are, but Marlon also had a good start too. So did Tom, but a little bit of a scrap at the back there. It was quite close.
Yeah, it was definitely quite close. That was the last thing Legend needed. Like you say, is the only one that started inside the top 16, that started on the medium compound tyre. What he needed to do was gain places earlier, and he's instead gone backwards. So this is already playing against Legend, as Ray has retired in the pit lane. Ray did have a coming together at turn number 7, I think, with Jensen further down the field. He was trying to go around the outside of the Aston Martin and just got beached on that sausage curb on the outside and spun across the nose of the Aston Martin. I think Jensen seems to have gotten away with it with no damage, but Ray has already retired in the pit lane, which is a shame to see. So Ray way out of the session already. And yeah, it's been a bit of a chaotic start to this one already, especially at the back of the field. But yeah, like I said, Legend, that is the last thing Legend needed for his race, is to go backwards on the medium compound tire. He's already trying to push his way back forwards again. He's onto the back of Rowan. I don't think Rowan's going to fight this too hard. I think Rowan knows that they're on completely different strategies. Legend is down the inside and is through into 7th position. He's still got to get up to 6th, which is where he started, but he's not quite there just yet. But yeah, not what he needed, not at all. And I think he just had a little bit of a wobble there as well through turn 12. He just got away with it, but Legend seemingly a little bit on edge.
Yeah, he does right now, heading towards the final corner as well. And don't forget, DRS will be activated this lap, so more chances for more overtakes to happen. So Legend really needs to get moving ASAP, and you can tell with the lap times he's producing as well that he wants to get a move on and he wants to redeem himself after the troubles of the first couple of laps. Frankie also doing the same, trying to redeem himself as well. He was near the bottom at the end of lap 1 and now he's back up to 13th, so good recovery drive from him so far. But we are starting to see Legend on the back of Tom now, the championship rivals from last season, as Legend goes to the right-hand side line through turn 4 as they both head towards turn 5. Tom backed out this occasion as they head towards the kink of turn 6 coming up now, as Legend, I think, is just making his way back through the field and showing why he has the pace to be obviously heading for the top of this division. Other drivers that have made gains so far this race are Fabi, he's up 2 places, Elio's up 1 as well. Biggest loser is Jensen down 4 and Nando down 3. Pretty much everyone else in the top 11 pretty much have not gained or lost anything. So Legend pretty much is back to where he was at the start of the race. So imagine where he could have been if he didn't have that incident as well. So that'll be interesting to see. Don't forget, top 10 do score points in this league, with the first place getting 16 points. So not your traditional Formula 1 points, but just to make it a little bit closer for the rest of the season. You can see already at the front, Asacombe is breaking free of Nemaya, 1 second separating, and Nemaya is struggling as Markados is right on the back of him so far. I won't be surprised if Markados will be in a Red Bull sandwich soon, but I think Markados will surely get past Nemaya due to the pace difference, I think, as well. But I have to agree with what you were saying earlier about Markados as well. He struggled at the start of the game cycle because obviously it's a new handling model and he was trying to get used to the game. I think other drivers, were the same as well. Now in the middle of the game cycle, it's the second season, towards the end of last season as well, we're starting to see that he's put the practice in, he's used to the game, he's used to obviously the tyre model a little bit more, and he's absolutely loving being up the front, which is what I like to see. I always like to see underdogs there quite well as well, and obviously Marlon doing very impressive as well, but not being able to get closing up to them yet. But this is what the trouble is. The DRS train is just growing and growing and growing, and they just need to save the ERS in order to not have too little going towards the final half of the race. But yeah, Nemaya, I think's gonna be in a world of pain with a lot of drivers chasing him down, and Ascombe is definitely going to be loving life so far, breaking free of Nemaya.
Yeah, definitely is. The one problem though is they're both burning a lot of ERS at the front of the field. Asacombe and Nemaya are derating, and here comes Markados down the inside into turn 1 on Nemaya to take second place away. So nice and easy move down the pit straight there for Markados. DRS pass, nothing to worry about. He is through and up into second position. Can he now do anything about closing back in on our race leader? It's crazy to think that Asacombe was so strong last season, such a great qualifier as well, but never won a race last season. It's bizarre to think that he had such a strong season but didn't win a single race, and this is the closest we've looked so far to him winning a race at any point really in PSGL F1. It would be nice to see if he can continue that for the rest of this race, but he's now got a new challenger in Markados in second position, trying to chase them down. As I say that, Markados has dropped here at turn 7. Turn 7's really been a biter tonight, hasn't it? It's caught a lot of drivers out in qualifying and on the opening lap, and Markados there, just a simple mistake too early on the power as the camber changes in the middle of the corner and he's dropped the car. He's not got any damage, but what looked like a very strong podium position potentially for Markados is pretty much out the window, barring any more chaos.
That was a bit of a shame for Markados. He was running so well, but yeah, I have to agree. I've had experience of myself of dropping it down into turn 7. It's so easy to do, unfortunately, but it may be down to the setup that Marcados is running, unfortunately, as well. But we'll see if he has the pace to close up onto a lot of these cars and pass them, just like Frankie did, and the likes of Legend. But he's on the hard tyres, where the ones who fell victim was on the mediums. And there we go, Marlon, who's continuing his great form, has passed his teammate of Nemaya up into second position. And all that's allowing his Ascombe to increase that gap even more. So Marlon has really got to pick up the pace and close up on Ascombe. But that was a very good move that Marlon did into P2 at the moment, because he's all doing very well in P4, also on the back of this train as well. And do not forget, these tyre strategies is quite close together actually. The predicted pit stop strategy for the mediums is around 14 to 15 laps, and then if you're starting on the hards, around about lap 17, 18. But if there's a safety car, the hards can last 26 laps, the mediums can last 18 laps as well. So we did see in F2, I think, earlier as well, and the safety car came in slightly early, and a lot of people had to go on the mediums early. They can do it as well. It was proven in F2, so if it happens, a safety car happens in F1, then that's probably what they have to do. But if the safety car came out now, then it won't be ideal for the hard runners at all to go onto a set of the medium compounder tyres. No major changes so far, but we've got to keep an eye out on Legend once again, who's got good straight line speed on Cazizzo, but again, he just can't get past. But as you were saying, 3% ERS is not ideal at all. He's got to save his ERS a bit more, but he's worried that if he doesn't save it, if he does save his ERS, he may lose out onto the back of Tom as well, who's doing a lot better in terms of ERS, 71%. So he's definitely doing the right thing right now, saving his battery, and then when he closes in onto Legend, that's where he can really start to push, really, until the predicted pit stop phase. But what you would do if you were in this DRS train, would you do the undercut? Would you do the overcut? It's a tough decision, but that's what these drivers have got to do as they head to the next stage of this Grand Prix. But not much is happening right now. It's just DRS trains after DRS trains. But we'll see what Cazizzo can do, as he's the closest on the back of the mic at the moment. Maybe he can get him next lap, because he can't get it this lap. You can tell which is the new part of the circuit due to the tarmac on the ground at the moment, but it seems like Cazizzo is not finding his feet at the moment. But I'm sure he's going to be patient. He's playing the patient game, as is a lot of these drivers at the moment. So he's probably going to not take too many risks now, because if he does, he's worried he might cause an incident. So interesting to see, but we'll see what Cazizzo can do as he goes in towards T1, as he was going to go for, maybe he had his overtake on, but he realised the Maya also had DRS, so unfortunately no luck. But maybe in turn 9 and 10 he can go for the move there.
Yeah, that's probably the best place, I would say. But I think if you're Cazizzo, I think you just have to sit behind Nemaya for a bit and save yourself. I think it's too early to be making risky moves in a DRS train, I would say. And I think Nemaya as well, you mentioned it, he's got to be doing a better job at saving his ERS, because he's still derating down that pit straight. I think Nemaya's quite lucky in a sense that we've only really got one proper DRS straight. Of course, we've got the back straight between 9 and 10, but the DRS zone is so short, it doesn't really make anything of a difference. So Nemaya's quite lucky in that sense, because his race pace compared to his qualifying pace doesn't look strong at all, and that car doesn't look good in a straight line. So yeah, I think Nemaya here is just trying to latch onto the back of Marlon and hope that his teammate pulls him along for a little bit. But you can see Marlon is just gapping his Red Bull teammate ever so slightly. By the way, it is so lovely to see the Marlon versus Tom battle for the fans in the chat. It's really nice to see. It's nice to see them both doing well so far further down the field. And just having a look, we're starting to see, this is one of those tracks, like I mentioned, because there's only one proper DRS straight, this is one of those tracks where you're more likely to see splits in a DRS train, because the rest of the track, of course, is just corner after corner after corner, and that's where dirty air can come into effect. And we're just starting to see the splits in the train now. Brock in P9 can't quite keep up with Rudy in front, and the top 8 are just separating themselves now from the rest of the field. Frankie, by the way, the other driver that started on the medium compound tyres, using a bit of ERS here, trying to go for a move, and they'll warp into turn 1. They're going to go 3 wide actually into turn 1 down the inside. I don't think that's quite going to work. That was never going to work, and both go Frankie and the warp. They both spin at turn 1 there. I think the warp was using his ERS to defend, and in the end had to turn it into an overtaking move on Brock, and they just went 3 wide into a corner that's not wide enough, around going the warp and Frankie at turn 1. That's such a shame. That is such a shame, because Frankie and the warp were up quite a few places in the race, but that's completely ruined their progress, and that's just dropped Brock now even further back behind this train of cars now.
Yes, free wide into turn 1 does not mix. I suggest you do not try it. I got put into so many situations where I almost was forced to go free wide, but obviously I had to back out, even though if I would lose position, it's better to do that than go into a spin like we saw Narup and Frankie do. So it's better to pick your own battles, and if you just don't go free wide into turn 1, it doesn't work. And if it does work, then it'll be interesting to see that as well. But 9 times out of 10, it does not. So Ascombe still leads up front for the time being, as someone has Marlon has had a moment, who's had a strong start to the race, a strong debut in the top tier. That's going to be really bad news to all Marlon supporters in the chat. Oh, that is very, very sad. But at the moment, he's still in the point. The safety car could bring him back into it, so it's not over yet. Let's hope he hasn't got any damage, and his dreams may come true as Frankie's out of the race, but he's retired in the pit lane, so his dreams may not come true at the moment. So, yeah, Marlon down to 8th place. And Meyer has left the session. That's a bit unfortunate, as Kazidl now goes past the Meyer. So, yeah, the ghosting system is on because of it. I'm sure Legend is going to do the same. By the way, even though he had a few moments on lap 1, Legend is back up into 3rd place. So, yeah. Definitely showing that he's made all the right stuff at the moment, and showing that he loves this game so far. He's right on the back of Kazidl. He's on the mediums. Surely he's got to think about moving in the next couple of laps before his tyres start to die.
Yeah, you really do. I think that's such a shame for Lamar. It's the curse of second place today at the moment, isn't it? Because we've had Markador spin when he's just taken second position. Marlon's now spun when he's in second, and then as soon as Namaya's back up into second, he disconnects from the lobby. So I think if you don't want to be in second right now in this lobby. It seems to be cursed at the moment. That is such a shame for all of those drivers. But yeah, like you say, Marlon's not out of it yet. There's still plenty of time in this race to make up places, and he's still in the points as well. So it could still be a solid day for our F3 champion if he can get back towards the DRS range of the drivers in front. As there you go, Legend down the inside of Kazidl and into that second position. That's not a surprise, and now Legend has a bit of free air to use those medium tyres, but we're now 10 laps in and Legend doesn't really have any ERS to play with, so I feel like the best of those mediums are pretty much gone at this point. And while all of this is happening behind and it's all kicking off in the mid-pack, Ascombe is just loving this at the moment. He's just driving away at the front of the field. He's not used any ERS, I've noticed, for the last 5 laps. He's just sitting at the front. He used a lot earlier on to gap the drivers behind, and now he's just sitting in the lead, saving his ERS. Without DRS, he's now back up to 50% pretty much ERS. He's using that so that he can hopefully defend himself later on if there's ever an attack, but the problem for him is that Legend, of course, second place in this race on the medium compound tyres, is going to be pitting in a couple of laps, you would assume. So, yeah, I think if you're Legend, that mistake on the opening lap that dropped him a few places is, I would say, kind of at this point in the race, taking him out of contention for the win, I would say. I don't think you're going to see that massive of an undercut on a fresh set of hard compound tyres, especially with the warm-up phase you're going to have on the hard compound tyres after the pit stop. I think Legend here is, trying to pray that he can hold on to a podium position here, but with this strategy and the lap one he had, I don't think the strategy is going to work out for Legend. And since overtaking Ascombe, Legend's not gained anything on Ascombe that lap. So yeah, I think Legend here is just kind of trying to see if he can still finish on the podium. Meanwhile, the other driver that everybody's supporting in the chat, Tom, is the first driver to pick up a time penalty in this race, and that's not really a surprise because this track is quite brutal on track limits. So yeah, Tom the first one to pick up that, and I doubt it will be the last time we see that pop up on our screen as well. So I'm sure that will pop up a few more times, as I think Namaya is back in control of his car. Yes, he is. Namaya's back in the lobby, back in control of his car, down in 11th. So again, not over and out for Namaya either. He can still recover from this. It's not the end of the world. It's obviously not ideal, but there's still points on the line that it could still be won, and Red Bull could still have a good strong start to the season manufacturers-wise.
Yeah, exactly. And due to the off-camber corners that some of this track has, that's probably why it's difficult to not get a time penalty in some places. I think a lot of these drivers like to exceed track limits quite a bit as well, pushing to the limits, of course, because it is the opening round of the season, as Rowan, I think, was a little bit close to Tom there into turn 10, gained a lot of cornering speed as well, which shows that he have a setup which is more tailored to the corners. But we'll see. I think Tom's got a lot more straight line speed so far as well, and you can start to see Legend's tyres really start to die a little bit, but he's really pulling away on the straights, which is helping him keep his second place dreams alive on the back of Kazidl, because once Kazidl gets into turn 1, that's where he really gains the time on Legend. But he's also got DRS to pull him along as well as they head towards turn number 2. We also got Tom in there, but he will drop positions as well. He wouldn't want a late safety car at all, because that would definitely put him out of contention for point at all at the moment. So let's just hope for him there's no safety car. But if there's a safety car, you may want to hope there's a safety car maybe now, so he can go on to a set of mediums, and that should be absolutely fine. But so far, everyone else keeping it clean. Rowan has been flying under the radar so far, same with Rudy as well, not being involved in that much carnage so far in between the two of them. They're just playing it safe so far, and sometimes that's what you have to do before you go into your pit stops and then really start to push towards the end of this race. But I think we can really start to see Rowan close in on Tom and really start to gain on him towards the latter stages of his first stint before they do their mandatory pit stop on to a set of the medium compounder tyres. And yeah, unfortunate, obviously, for those of you that just joined in the chat, Orgiano is not racing, unfortunately. He's under AI because his brake pedal, unfortunately, has died on him. So, yes, Connor told us in the chat earlier. So, bit of a shame as we got our first pitter on the mediums, onto the hard tyres, Legend, who was in second position. And we'll see what he can do towards the end of the race. But if there's another safety car, and if everyone else goes onto a set of medium tyres, he's got a set of mediums to play with if he went for the balance or the harder option. So it's not out of the woods yet for Legend, but for him, he hopes that there's no safety cars either, because otherwise he'll definitely be out of a race win. But that's all most of the medium runners that's come in. Has a yellow flag. We've got Narup, who's unfortunately had a spin in turn 1 and 2. And unfortunately, I think he could be passed by Legend soon in the next couple of corners. So he's got a lot of work to do, unfortunately. Now, Nando's struggling a little bit as well. But there's some drivers that find F1, the top tier, a little bit hard in the first couple of races. But as they find their feet, just like Markados, they should be absolutely fine. By the way, Markados is back up into 8th, by the way. So he's finding his feet once again. But yeah, don't be too disheartened if some of the F2 drivers from last season are down in 15th and 16th. Take what Markados said. You can fight your way back up to the front eventually, as long as you do it when it counts.
Yeah, of course, like you say, there's still plenty to go. It's also the first race of the season, so there's still a long season to go as we've got Brock into the pit lane. That's interesting. End of lap 14 off of the hard compound tyre. That seems like a very early pit stop as Marlon, fastest lap of the race, 14 laps in on his hard compound tyres. Interestingly for Marlon's actually nearly back in this DRS train for second place. He's pushing like crazy, is the Red Bull driver, but he's almost back in DRS range. So if he can get back within DRS range of Rudy, that is some recovery from a very high-speed spin at the final corner if he can do that. And with those pit stops, that's kind of split out that mid-pack now. Marlon's got a comfortable gap on Markados, who has a comfortable gap on Maya as the Warp has retired in the pit lane. I don't think that's too much of a surprise, unfortunately. Yeah, but Brock and Fabi into the pit lane at the end of lap 14s for a set of medium compound tyres. They will go to the end, but I don't think this is the smart call from Brock or Fabi. I think this is too early. I think that the medium tyres, of course, will give them a good undercut, but we know that the medium tyres do have a fall off in pace, and with 18 laps on these tyres, more laps on the mediums than you do on the hards around a track is abrasive and difficult on the tyres, especially tyre management as Spain is. I feel like these tyres are going to be dead with the final 5 laps of this race, and they're just going to be setting ducks for other drivers on fresher medium tyres. So we'll see if anybody reacts to it. I won't be surprised if we see a couple of drivers react to a pit stop. Maybe someone like Lemaya, who's no longer in DRS range of a driver in front, might pit and react just to get the track position potentially, but I still think it's too early, is actually because Zizzle, Rowan and Marlon are all into the pit lane at the end of lap 15. So these pit stops are coming a lot earlier than I thought they would. This is, yeah, very aggressive strategies from these drivers to be doing more laps on the mediums than they are on the hards, especially considering, of course, we know he started on them, but especially considering Legend got nowhere near half distance on his medium compound tyres before they started falling off. So I know he obviously started on them and they're going to wear more with higher fuel, but it's not that much of a difference. So I feel like this is a little bit too early for some of these drivers. And if someone can stay out a couple of laps, 3 laps longer and pit for mediums, they could have a big pace advantage at the end of the race. By the way, after that pit stop phase, Zizzle, after his pit stop, is ahead of Legend on track. Of course, Legend tyres will be up to temperature, so he should go for the move here at turn 4 and does. But by pitting 2 laps earlier, and going for a fresh set of hard compound tyres, Legend has gained nothing in track position because Kizzle was directly behind him before the pit stops anyway. So that undercut for Legend has not worked, and now he's got a queue of fresh set medium compound tyres right behind him who could breeze past him very quickly.
Yes, exactly. It's understandable if there was a safety car. You probably had no other choice if there was a safety car, but there was no safety car when those drivers pitted onto a medium compounder tyre, so it's a little bit more risky. They'll be going up to normal pace, so they're really going to hope that there will be a safety car to really increase the life of their medium compounder tyres, and more people, I think, are responding to the undercut of these medium runners, as Markados has got a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. A shame for him, but we've got Asakome, our race leader, in. Markados, who is in. Tom is going in as well, all for sets of medium tyres. It's still the top 5 that is yet to pit, but we'll see what Asakome could do. Can he get ahead of Legend in these next rounds? And it does go ahead of Legend by quite a substantial margin. So as Asakome in sit, as Kazizel having a nice battle with himself, and Tom there as well with Legend, which is quite tight so far. It could be almost 3 wide coming up into turn number 4 as well. Could be 4 wide as well. Someone has to back off surely, as Kazizel down the inside as well. Tom tries to cover off around the outside as well. We've got Rowan that also wants to join in this fight as well, heading towards turn number 5 and 6 as they go into a very tricky corner as well. As that was very tight. I'm gutted that I missed the start of that, to be honest, but I'm very glad I caught this part of this battle, to be honest, as we got Tom that's losing out on all that Legend as well, who's lost 2 positions, and it already started that Kazizel tried to go down the inside of Legend into turn 1, but Rowan, can he get the better of Kazizel around this corner of T10? Doesn't look like it, but Legend and Tom, both the biggest losers out of all of that, and Kazizel and Rowan the biggest gainers out of all of that, and Asakome is just sitting pretty still in P1 and still keeping exactly the same gap, not to Legend but to Kazizel this time. But we're seeing the final few drivers pitting. Lemire is in, Rudy is in, and so is Elia. Jensen and Louis are staying out, but we'll see if any one of those drivers will try to go for the move again. We'll see if Legend tries to go for it. Legend is a little bit less closer this time, as the timing tower changes quite a lot because of obviously a lot of people going into the pits, but that was very, very exciting with these 4 drivers there, as well as Kazizel has had a spin going through turn 2 and 3, and his hard work by overtaking Legend on the previous lap is undone, unfortunately, and that allows Rowan to be ahead of this train and allows Legend to fight back, really, and gain what he's lost. But look at the back of Tom heading towards turn 6, and then let's see what he could do in this very tricky corner, as Legend is harvesting energy with the ERS deployment. That is why his ERS light is red, but Tom has got a bit more ERS in him. Can he go for the lunge into turn 10? No, he cannot. He will stay behind yet for another corner, but Legend running a little bit wide there. Good defensive from Legend there as well, just to close the door on him, but there we go. That was quite intense those last couple of laps, wasn't it, Aidan?
Yeah, it really was intense. I think you could tell Legend was getting a little bit desperate with some of his defensive moves. That's why I made that noise while you were talking, because Legend moved very late on Kazizel down the pit straight, and Kazizel had to react to it at the last minute to make sure we didn't run into the back of the Ferrari, and now the Ferrari's out of DRS range to Rowan in front. Tom's just going to breeze past down the pit straight. There you go. Tom is through and up into 5th position, which is a net 3rd in this race all of a sudden. Where has Rowan come from in this race? Rowan was kind of in the middle of nowhere, it felt like, at the start of this race, running at the back of the train, and now all of a sudden he's in a net 2nd, and a comfortable net 2nd at the moment, because behind him is Tom, who has, of course, a 3-second penalty, Legend, who's on, I would say at this point, the wrong strategy, and Marlon, who is another 3 cars back and is not got the track position to help and is on the same age of tyres, so doesn't have that advantage in that sense. So, yeah, at the moment, Rowan looking dead on for a good 2nd place finish here. It's been a really strong race so far from Rowan, if a little understated. And there is just something about that net 2nd place position, isn't there, that is cursed tonight, because Kazizel was in a net 2nd and then he spun coming through turn number 3, which in the previous generation of cars would not have really been a corner you thought about, because the tyres were so deep, and the 13-inch tyres and the downforce meant the car just stuck to the road. You didn't have to worry about it, but with these new floors and the 18-inch rims, of course, that makes these cars a lot more unstable at high speed, and it's obviously caught Kazizel out, and it's pretty much the first driver tonight we've seen have a high-speed spin through turn number 3, which is a shame, and he is now down and out of the points in 15th, and it's not looking likely that he'll be able to get back in with the amount of drivers in front of him on fresher medium compound tyres as Asocombe sets the fastest lap of the race. And Asocombe's lead now is nearly 5 seconds. This race so far, I don't want to curse him because I'm very good at cursing people, but touch wood, for Asocombe at least, this has been a dream race. He got away at the start of this race, broke the DRS gap, and hasn't looked back since. Everybody behind him has been spinning and making mistakes and picking up penalties, while he's just driven off into the distance, having a safe race, not pushing his luck with any of the curves, and it's just been a really solid race so far from Asocombe. And again, like I said earlier on, didn't win a race at all last season. We've got to fight further down. Yeah. Oh, contact. Oh, Marlon has been hit in the rear there by Legend through turn number 5. Oh, and Marlon's going to be down another... Oh, that's down 4 places for Marlon. That little bit of contact, and he's dropped 4 places. Man, Marlon's not having the best of luck tonight, is he? And Legend there, I think, again, like I said earlier on, I think Legend is just getting a little bit desperate now on these hard compound tyres, trying to hold on to some of these places, and is just racing too aggressively.
Yeah, it looks like it as well, as Marlon trying to fight back, and technically he's still in a train as well, so he's still in this fight, but Markados trying to go around a long way around into turn 13, and Markados almost going into a spin with Marlon too, so Marlon just got to pick his own battles. Don't forget, this is his first season in at the top tier, and there's still a long way to go, but he really wants to be fighting up against the best of the best. And I have to say, Rudy made a brilliant move earlier on the last lap into T1 as well. Nice and controlled too, and he's now up into 6th position, so that was a move whilst you were talking as well, so brilliant stuff as well. We got the 2 Williams drivers now fighting for 8th position, but Markados has got a time penalty, so he's going to drop quite a bit. So at the moment, Marlon is at a net P7 or 8 right now in this race. Don't forget top 10 score points. If you're liking the action so far, don't forget get to click like and subscribe and hit that bell if you are new. And also check out our sponsor GT Omega. You can get 5% off all GT Omega products by clicking the link in the description and using our discount code PSGL. So if you want to do that, make sure you do so. Click the link and use the discount code PSGL. You can get lots of lovely sim rigs and also some nice chairs that me and Aidan have very kindly been gifted by GT Omega again for a 2nd season. So thank you very much to them, and a few more commentators will be getting it for this season as well. So thank you to the guys at GT Omega. We appreciate your assistance, and also they will be providing some lovely prizes to our champion in the top tier this season as well, for PSF1 and also PSF2 I believe as well, and the top 6 PC tiers, so very, very exciting as well. So yes, another motivation for the drivers to do well, because they can get some lovely GT Omega goodies if they win at the championship this season.
Yeah, a lot on the line, and it's great to see, like you say, these GT Omega seats are great, and they're really lovely as well to sit on. It's nice for my back. It's definitely helped my back out as I work from home full time as well. So yeah, that's really helped us further down the field, because it's always past Elliot and up into 14th. So he's trying to fight his way back up to the bottom end of the top 10 and try and see if he can get some points out of this race. I was mentioning earlier on how Rowan is kind of snuck out from nowhere and is in a really good position. Another driver that's done the same is Rudy. Rudy pitted a lot later than everybody else that went for the medium compound tyres. Is now up into 6th, which is a net 3rd in this race, of course, because he's within 3 seconds of Tom, who's the only one with a track limits time penalty in this race so far. Rudy within range, and with fresher tyres than the 2 drivers in front, could catch them by the end of this race, but he's now sitting in a net 3rd all of a sudden, is Rudy, after a bit of a mellow start to this race in the first stint, just kind of flying under the radar. So 2 drivers there, Rowan and Rudy, who played it safe in the opening parts, weren't fighting too hard, just kind of sat in the train, saved their ERS and their tyres, and are now coming alive as everybody else is making mistakes in the second part of the race. So good stuff for them, as Legend on those hard compound tyres is trying really hard to keep up with the back of Rudy. The one thing saving Legend, I think, is Rudy's lack of ERS, but here comes Fabi now on the back of Legend. Where has Fabi come from in this race? He's now up into 8th place in this Williams. Is he close enough, though, to Legend into turn 1? Not quite. He has to sit behind the Ferrari for the time being, but Fabi, another one who's up quite a few places in this race, now into P8 in this one, so doing really, really well. And another thing to note as well, we haven't mentioned them, but Jensen and Louis still running out on the track on their hard compound tyres. I think clearly going to a set of soft compound tyres is the plan, but I think with the time they've lost on these hard compound tyres, I don't really see what the benefit is for this strategy for Jensen and Louis, because I don't think the softs are that much more competitive than the medium compound tyres, unless of course we do have a late safety car, in which case that will play into Jensen and Louis' hands. There may just be goal hanging for some sort of safety car, but either way they are just going to continue on, I think we would say, from another couple of laps, and then put on a fresh set of softs and see what they can do. But with everybody pushing so well in a train on the mediums, I think it's going to be a little bit difficult for them if they do go for that strategy, because I don't see where they would quite fit in.
Yes, I think what Jensen and Louis are doing at the moment, they've got nothing to lose in this situation because they were near the back anyway, so why not try and go for the softest tire towards the end? They can last about 9 laps, and if there's no safety car, then they just can have a bit of glory setting purple laps, or if there is a safety car, they can really go back into this race. So they've got nothing to lose in a sense, as Tom tries to get past Rowan before going into T1 with the DRS, and he does it with ease right now as Tom is up into 4th place, but he is in danger of being ahead of this DRS train, and another DRS train which is led by Rudy, and he's got Legend and Fabi on the back of this as well. Marlon as well, almost trying to get past Marcados once again. It is a Marcados-Marlon rivalry at the moment, heading towards the end of this race, as Marlon trying to fight back on a few spins that he has had. But Spain is a really hard track, to be honest, and it's inevitable that quite a few people would go for a little bit of a spin. Don't forget that Tom's penalty will drop him down a few places. I believe he's only got 1 3-second penalty, so it won't be massive a place. He'll still be in the points, I believe, but not where he wants to be at the start of the season, considering he was the PSGL PSF1 runner-up from last season. So a lot of work to do for him as we're heading towards the final third of this race very, very soon. And your net race leader is still Asako by a massive 4.7 seconds. It will be even more due to Tom's penalty. And at the moment, Rowan is in a net P2. So realistically, the softs can get to the end from here. So if I was Jensen or Louis, maybe not risk for a late safety car, come in now and see what happens. But if there is a late safety car, that will play a lot into their hands as well. Who else is going to go for a move here? Rowan doesn't look like he was going to go for it at the moment. We'll watch Marlon on the back of Marcados once again. It seems to have quietened off a little bit towards the end of this race so far, but anything can happen towards the final stages, and for some of them they've got a lot of work to do. But for a lot of these drivers, obviously apart from Oggiano, who's not in the session, most people are in a DRS train of some sort. So a lot of these drivers are still in the running for either a podium, a win, or maybe some points.
Yeah, there's still a lot to play for, like you're saying. It could all kick off at the end of the race, especially if those that pitted the earliest of those on the medium compound tyres, like Fabi and Brock, if they start struggling a little bit on their medium tyres towards the end, that will give impetus to people on fresher mediums to try and get some moves done. And maybe some unorthodox places around this track. There are some other places on the circuit you can think of a move if you're close enough. Places like Turn 4 and Turn 5, of course, and Turn 10 as well. We've got a yellow flag in the third sector. I think that is Louis that's had a bit of a moment, unfortunately, and has now got Asacombe right behind. So Asacombe should get this move done quite nicely. But Jensen and Louis still not pitted yet, which I find quite interesting. I thought they would have pitted this lap, but they've not done that. I'm thinking, I guess they're just hoping for a safety car at this point, because if they're leaving it this late, I don't think it's really going to work. Well, let's say he's now saying Louis in. Yeah, on my end, he was still out on the track, so I think Louis having a couple of a bit of a connection issue there in the Alpine, but he will drop right down to the back of the field, and this will be references to where Jensen will be on track. And look, already Louis only just left his pit box. Look how far behind the train he is. He's nowhere near. So yeah, this strategy for Jensen and Louis is only going to work if there's a safety car, and we're running closer and closer to the point where that's not really going to be a factor. So this hasn't worked for these two drivers that stayed out on these hard compound tyres. But yeah, I think it's quite impressive actually for these drivers how well they've been able to keep in a DRS train. Obviously through the pit stop phase you usually start to see trains just split up that little bit and people start to spread out into their own little battles as everybody pits at different times, and it can cause a few gaps. But we've not really seen that in this race. It's not really been the case, other than our net top 3 and top 4 in this race. Everybody's kept relatively within check, so it's quite interesting to see. We're not quite seen a race like this in a while, I would say. Is one thing to note as well. Legend, now that he's in 6th on those hard compound tyres, he doesn't have any ERS to use, but he's not falling back through the field anymore, is Legend. He's now kind of sat in 6th position, which with Tom's penalty is a net 5th. So not too bad, I would say, for Legend. Of course, not where he would want to be, considering the end of the season he had last season in season 31, but I think 5th place is probably better than he was thinking after the opening lap with the strategy he is on. But yeah, you kind of wonder what Legend could have done if he was on the same strategy as everybody else. You would expect him to be a bit higher than this, but that is not the case as we're on to lap 27. Jensen's still not pitting, so I think Jensen now at this point just wants to be out the front and leading the laps just to get something on the board. And Asacombe will be up to him. They'll get fastest lap at the end. He'll be in a battle with Louis for fastest lap, but of course with them being out of the points, they won't get the point for it. So Asako closing in very quickly, and you can tell Asako now the gap's coming down ever so slightly between him and Tom. It's now down to 4.3 seconds, but you can tell Asako, when you're right on board with him, he is just not pushing at all. He is keeping it very safe. He's keeping well away from all the dangerous curves. He's keeping in the middle of the road. He's not pushing his limits. He's not using any ERS. It's just a nice safe drive home here from Asako.
To be honest, he's one of the only drivers in this field today that has not made any mistakes. A lot of drivers around him, like you were saying, weren't involved in spins, and he was just keeping his cool a little bit. So Ascombe was probably relieved that he wasn't in any battles this evening, and he could just play it safe, go maybe about 5 tenths off the pace than his usual pace as well, and just focus on bringing the car home, because even him not pushing too much, he's still around 4 seconds clear of everybody else, as Jensen has decided that he's thinking there's going to be no safety car. Well, it probably won't be a safety car now, and he's going to be going into the pits for a set of the soft tyres and go for glory for fastest lap. So that means Ascombe is your race leader on track and your net race leader as well, and I think he's about to lap obviously the Oggiano as well, and I believe Louis is a lap down as well, unfortunately, which is a bit of a shame, but we shall see what happens as we get to the end of this race, as I think there's no other battles happening at the moment. I think they're just playing it safe towards the end at the moment. Up to top 10, Nemaya will get the last point. Reserve drivers do score points for themselves, but not for the constructors, so Romanino won't get a point for Haas, which is a bit of a shame. But Elliott doing not too bad in 13th at the moment, has kept his cool. He hasn't been involved in that much trouble. It's just his pace wasn't up to scratch, unfortunately, but again, he will start to get a bit of a feel for it as the season to come, and he'll probably get used to it as the races goes on, to be honest, as well. As Louis setting the fastest lap, 1:18.5, so Jensen has got that to beat so far as well, so we'll see what happens there. But the question is, who is going to get the final podium spot? At the moment, it's going to belong to Rowan, but you never know. Rowan could make a mistake, and Rudy could still challenge Legends in there as well. Legends' tyres are the more durable compared to everybody else's, so he could be on the back of Rudy for all we know. Legends' tyres, don't forget, died around 11-12 laps in, and he's already closing in on the back of Rudy, so Rudy's potential P3 is under threat here with Legend.
Yeah, definitely is. Like you say, Legend's done a very good job at this phase of the race to just latch onto the back of the of the McLaren, sorry, and not fall away and just keep within range. So if Legend can save a bit of ERS in his next couple of laps, he could have a run at the back of Rudy. Like you said, it could be the final spot on the podium if he's able to do that. But it's going to take a bit of a push on these hard compound tyres, because even while the mediums will be falling off, these hards won't be at their best life either. They're not going to be doing too great, as Louis has retired in the pit lane. That's not a surprise. He was having a few connection issues. His fastest lap time popped up when he was in turn 7. So yeah, he was definitely having a few connection issues. So that saved us a bit of a grief potentially with a timing glitch at the end of the race. So that is him out of the race, which is a shame to see. We're now down to 15 drivers in this race. Of course, Oggiano not in control of his cars. That is just Louis' car coming out the pit lane. Never mind, that always gets me when that yellow flag pops up. We'll see what Legend can do. Whether he can have a run at Rudy for this final spot on the podium, it's going to have to take him saving a bit more ERS, though, because while Rudy's struggling with ERS in front, Legend's not got any reserve that he can really burn to get closer in a straight line. And of course, turn 1 is really your best opportunity. So yeah, Legend's going to have to save a little bit more if he wants to try and get there, try and get into that final podium spot. And it'd be a good position if he can do that with this strategy he's on. It's definitely not the favoured strategy, but to still come away with a P3 from it would be great. Obviously, things have fallen a little bit into his lap with some of the performances and mistakes with some other drivers. You would expect, there's a lot of drivers in this field you would have expected to be a bit further up, considering where they were in the first half of this race. People like Marcados and Nemaya, of course, and Marlon as well, all running in second at different points in the race, and they're now down at the bottom end of the top 10. So things have fallen Legend's way just a little bit in this race on this strategy. It's still a good result, but it's obviously not where he would have wanted to be, and it's a shame that it's not worked out for him, this strategy. It's nice to see someone do something different, but it's not quite worked in this way, as we come up to 3 laps to go when we cross the line. So when we cross the line, officially it's not possible for a safety car to come out. So that will be, once we cross the line, that will be the state of play, and it will be just a straight run to the finish line now, if that is the case. And Ascombe is just, as I said earlier on, just cruising out in front now, 3.7 seconds clear.
I don't think we've had a VSC either. So that's the first race in a while where we've had no safety cars or VSCs in PSGL, PSF1. So there you go. That just shows how clean a lot of these drivers do. And I think that the main mistakes were due to spins. There were not many drivers that had front wing damage. It was mainly just spins. So they were able to keep the car in control as well. And it just shows obviously how much practice they can get with that as well. And I have to say, even despite his spin, Marlon fighting back to 8th place, I have to say, is a very great comeback for him. So he can go to the end of this race and with his head held high and still know that he's still done a great job, and he would have been higher up without those spins. But still a long way to go for him. But to be honest, it's about the experience. There's a lot of these drivers that have been in F1 for seasons and seasons, or maybe their second season or their third season or even their fourth season in F1. So Marlon has got a bit more life in him, so watch out for him. And Marcos as well, who was running in P2 as well. Watch out for him for the rest of the season, because I think he could be very good as well. There's no safety car now. We've passed the point of safety cars, but we haven't passed the point of who we know is going to get that podium as well. We'll look at the position gain from all the drivers as well, as Fabi has gained the most. Fabi's thrown under the radar a bit, but his moves today has been absolutely incredible. He's gained 8 places in this race. Romanino has gained 5 places. Shame he won't be getting any points after that. Tom, Rowan and Rudy both gained 5, but Tom will gain probably 3 because he will lose out a few positions to the guys behind him. But we can see Rowan's got a bit of straight line speed. He's going to go for the move on Tom towards turn number 1. This could be second place on the road then. And Tom did not fight it too much because he knows he won't get second place anyway. So Rowan up into second place, and that's exactly what he needed. Where was his pace that we saw last season? Because last season he struggled a little bit in some of the races, but Rowan is really starting to find his form on this game. He has a new lease of life, and to be honest, he wasn't involved in that much trouble this race, and it's definitely rewarding him so far with a second place spot so far. It'll be a bit too late obviously for him to get into P1 spot, but surely that was a move that will secure him definitely second place, because Rudy is 2.2 seconds down the road unfortunately, and Tom with a penalty. I know he would have been second place anyway, but with him being very confident to go for the move anyway, it just shows how much pace he has on those tyres currently.
Yeah, he's doing a really good job in this race as well. And like you're saying, it's kind of weird, isn't it? Like you say, Rowan had really struggled last season, but he started off the season with a podium in the first race of the season, did Rowan, and then got nowhere near the podium ever since. So hopefully this isn't a repeat of last season, this season around, getting a podium in the first race and then not getting it again for the rest of the season. One thing to note, Fabi is, I thought Fabi was just about to drop out of DRS range there to Legend, but does not, stays within range just about, so he shouldn't be under threat for Marcos behind. And Legend doesn't have the straight line speed or the DRS to do it, as Tom gets back past down the pit straight of Rowan and up into second place. I think Tom is just doing that to try and build a 3-second gap on the drivers behind, because as it stands, he is tantalisingly close to beating Legend on a time penalty here, and that will still secure Tom a 4th place finish in this race, and that is still a solid result if you can hold on to it. So we've got a yellow flag. That is Brock. That's Brock that spun out of a points position. Brock has spun... contact with the Maya. Yeah, they've both gone off. So I don't know if that's there's exceeding track limits penalty there for Brock. I don't know if that's a case of one spun and the other's crashed in avoidance, or whether they've made contact. But Brock and Amaya, neither of them with a front wing on their car, so they are both out of contention for points now. That puts both Haas cars now in the points range with Marcos' 5-second penalty. But yeah, coming towards the end of this one, it's 1 sector to go. Ascombe has utterly dominated from start to finish, and this is a well-deserved first victory in Formula 1.
Yes, I believe it's his first win in the top tier ever as well. It's been a long time coming. It's been a long streak. I think the first season he was in F1, he struggled a little bit to get wins. He's mainly got poles, but hasn't got wins. But this is the race where his winless streak has come to an end. Ascombe is finally a race winner in PSGL PSF1. He could celebrate. Rowan with an impressive performance today in second. Rudy with an impressive performance in third. Watson, great moves he's made this race. Tom gets Legend by 3 tenths, but Tom could have got third, and it was 7/100ths of a second. That was agonisingly close as well. He pushed it even more. Tom would have got on the podium spot, but 4th place still is quite good. And I didn't see the rest of the results, but some impressive performances from obviously Fabi and Sip, and obviously some other drivers as well, which we'll go through in just a minute. Legend gets your driver of the day in game, but we would like to know what your driver of the day is in the chat as well. I know what some of you drivers will people in the chat will think. I won't be surprised if Marlon is one of the contenders, but Ascombe is definitely one of them, and a few others as well. And with a few drivers throwing under the radar in the opening stages, like Rowan, he suddenly came to his own in the final laps, and it paid off for him. And top 3, well deserved. And we'll have to wait and see if they stay like that in the top 3 in the standings, or will we see, like last season, be all changed? Because I think we see it change for most of the last season, to be honest, with 2nd and 3rd place. So we'll see if Ascombe could keep to the top of the standings for a long time this time. But yeah, a long overdue win, definitely well deserved.
Yeah, really well deserved, like you say, long overdue. He was so close to many race wins last season, they just didn't fall his way. He got so many podium finishes in season 31, but great to see to get that first win. And teamed with a pole position as well, leading pretty much all the way through that race. That is as good of a race as you can hope for, I would say, for an opening round of the season as well. That is an absolutely brilliant performance from Ascombe. And like you said, yeah, Rowan and Rudy flew under radar all the way through that race, but still really, really great results from them. But one thing to note, it is going to be very interesting for the season. There's a lot of drivers further down this field who could have had a lot more in this race and didn't get it. So that suggests to me that we're going to have a very close title fight.
I have to say, great massive shout out to Elia as well for flying under the radar as well, because everyone else had some problems behind him. He was able to get his first point in PSGL PSF1. Same with Marlon as well. He gets his first point in PSF1 as well. And Romanino gets some points as well as a reserve driver as well. And he's probably showing, you know what, I might get points full time if you put me in a full time seat, but we'll have to wait and see. But that was quite a good race, but not as action-packed as we would have liked. But still, there were some moments in the race which could have ended very badly for some drivers. But there was some drivers that were said what could have been. Shame for the likes of Marlon, Marcados that were near the front at the start of the race. But it just comes to the amount of experience, really, with fighting with the pressure. Maybe the pressure got to them a little bit, or maybe it's just the nature of the corners where you just could spin quite a lot. So, yeah, an exciting season ahead of us, and plenty of drivers who I feel could do very well. So don't count out a lot of drivers yet. Don't count out Ogiano either. He wasn't here due to his brake pedal, and let's hope he can fight back strong in a few weeks' time when we head to Bahrain, I believe.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what a lot of drivers can do. Like we mentioned all the way through the race, people like Marlon, Marcados, we had Namaya as well, Kazizel, another driver as well, that had solid first halves of the race, but mistakes really cost them a solid result, and with all 4 of them actually a run at the podium. So it's going to be interesting to see what they can do next time around. It's only the first race, there's still a long way to go. We saw it last season as well. Dinerco didn't get off to the best of starts last season, but as we got to about the 3rd or 4th race, then he just started banging in the good results, and that's how you win a championship in this. So it's all well and good having a great race first time around. You've now got to try and keep it up for the rest of the season, with it only being a 12 race season. You've got to keep the momentum going all the way through, otherwise you can just fall by the wayside so quickly. So yeah, brilliant performance from Ascombe. Great to see him get that first win of the season, and I'm excited to see what we could do for the rest of the season as well. I was a little bit worried coming into this race that we were going to see a Legend domination, just based on how strong he was at the end of season 31. I think we came into this one, I think a lot of us came into this one thinking Legend's just going to run away with it, and that was not the case. He was, of course, on a different strategy to everybody else, but he didn't qualify the best either. He qualified, I believe, in 7th position or 6th position, if I'm not mistaken. So it wasn't the domination that I was maybe expecting coming into it, which actually bodes quite well. It's quite nice to see that there are seemingly many people that can fight for this title.
Yes, so many people, and just like Dinerco proved as well last season, if you have good consistency, that's what will help you win the title. He didn't have a strong end to last season, but it's what the results he had towards the start of the season that really helped him solidify himself as at the top. So maybe we will see that with Ascombe, or maybe somebody different as well. We are just waiting to see if any drivers would like to come and speak to us in the interview room. Hopefully we get to speak to our new PSGL PSF1 race winner very, very soon as well, and hopefully we can see that as well. But just a quick reminder, next week, no race for us, because obviously on the Sunday we've got the Brazilian Grand Prix, which I'll definitely be watching, and it's only fair, like we were saying earlier, that the PS tiers get a break as well. So obviously the PS tier on Thursdays will be racing their race around Spain, but then after that we've got a bit of a break week, so make sure you stay tuned. I don't think we have anybody else? Usually all the time when if I try to end the stream, there's always someone that likes to come and speak to us. But we'll wrap up our words here. Any final words before we wrap up the stream?
I think just excitement for the rest of the season. It obviously wasn't the most action-packed race, but it's the circuit of Barcelona Catalunya. What do we really expect? It's not the most exhilarating track in terms of racing, but it's a track that shows a lot of jeopardy in drivers, and it's a difficult track to master, and it's a driver's circuit, isn't it? We mentioned this, I think, just in before we went live, that this is definitely a driver's circuit, and we've got a lot of that this season. We've got a lot of driver's circuits coming up this season. We've got to say places like Zandvoort we've got coming up as well. We've got Canada, of course, Monaco, another one. A lot of circuits coming up for this rest of the season that focus mainly on the driver being as strong as possible and relying on the driver's skill rather than maybe having the best setup. So that's going to be interesting, and I think that adds a dynamic to this season that we haven't seen for the past couple, where it's going to be, I think, maybe not the order we were initially expecting coming into it, which is really, really exciting. I'm super excited for that. And yeah, Bahrain in 2 weeks' time, a little bit different to Spain, a lot more overtaking opportunities. We're going to see a lot more DRS trains. It's going to be exciting. I think Bahrain will be a really, really interesting race. And I really hope this season we get to see more race winners than we did in season 32, because we did see Legend and Danerco kind of dominate the winners' trophies from last season. It'd be nice to see if we can get quite a few different winners on the board. That would be really, really exciting.
Yes, and I think, as you were saying your closing remarks, I think we will have an interview from Rudy, so I'll get him to join the rating room. So that's a nice segue a little bit there as well. Unfortunately, I don't think we're able to hear from the other podium sitters, unfortunately, but there we go. Whilst we wait for Rudy to come into our little interview rating room, make sure you click the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit that bell if you are new, and also make sure you check out our title sponsor, GT Omega, where you can get 5% off all of the GT Omega products by using the code PSGL. Click the link in the description, and also the champions from PSF1 will be winning some nice prizes from GT Omega, as well as it's a good timing. Rudy has come into the interview room. Thank you, Rudy, for waiting for me to speak. So here we go. I will drag him in just a second. Rudy waiting so patiently there. So we've got the man who did very, very well towards the end of the race and got a nice podium out of it. Rudy, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. Very solid race from you as well for the opening round of the season. Tell us how the race was from your perspective.
Yeah. I mean, in the end, from P8 to P3, I can't complain. In quali, I felt like I did a good lap. I think we went the wrong way with the setup. So yeah, we didn't have a lot of quality performance, and in the race I was struggling to keep up as well. But yeah, a lot of people had spins, and I think Marlon and Marcos both had a spin, and then I even had a big moment myself at one point, which lost me like a second, which could have made the race a lot easier for me. But in the end, I drove my ass off, and in the end got podium. Not gonna complain with that.
Yeah, because you were being very consistent last season to almost challenge for the title towards the end of last season as well. So you were really showing your pace day as well. And talk us through your confidence in the final stint as well, because obviously you saw other people having spin. You made a nice move earlier on as well. Did you obviously think you thought the win was out of reach? Were you just concentrating on maybe catching up to the guys in front of you to potentially get a podium spot?
Yeah, well, for me, the only overtake I made pretty much was on Fabi, and I saw really early on in the race that Assicombe was just pulling away. So yeah, I don't think the guys at the front, me neither. I didn't have the pace either, but I think they had a bit less pace than Assicombe, so I knew the win was going to be out of reach. And early on in the stint, there were like loads of people spinning and stuff, and then I was just picking up position by position. Then Namaya had his disconnect. And then I also saw Tom's penalty, and I knew, from P8, P8 is not an ideal position, but P3, if you want to challenge for a championship in a race that didn't really go your way, is really, really good. So, yeah, in the end, just really happy with P3, and hopefully for next week, I'll be a bit more on the pace.
it shows that consistency is key. So even though P3, you'll be very happy with it now. If you keep getting those podiums, then maybe that could be enough for you to challenge for the top. You never know as well. And as we get to obviously the next round in a couple of weeks' time, who would you say, after tonight and maybe after obviously placement, who would you say is your biggest rival to possibly challenge for the title? Do you think Asicom is up there? Or maybe still Legend is at the top of your list? Who knows? Who is your biggest rival?
Asicom's definitely up there. He's been always up there last season. I honestly think Marlon's not going to be... Yeah, it's going to be... doing really well, maybe not challenge for the title, but I think he will pick up some really good races. And yeah, for me, main rivals are definitely Asicom, Tom, Legend. Legend didn't have a really good race today. He was a bit unlucky with like a moment he had early on in the race. And yeah, Tom, yeah, he picked up a penalty, so yeah, he would have finished ahead of me. Maybe Rowan as well. I don't know how his pace is going to be for the rest of the season, but I'd say yes, the top three are definitely Tom, Legend, and Asicom. Don't know which order, but we will see, I guess.
Yes. Aidan, do you have any questions for Rudy?
I think the only question for me, obviously you mentioned going forwards, consistency is key. Speaking of consistency, how are you feeling about the calendar? How does the calendar suit you? Is it a calendar you think plays into your strengths, or is it a calendar that maybe doesn't quite suit your driving style as much?
To be honest, the calendar is pretty terrible for me. I'm not gonna lie. I think Spain wasn't ideal for me. Then Bahrain isn't either. Netherlands also not one of my favorites. Then 2 rounds, Canada and Monaco, which I despise, especially Canada. then there's some good rounds for me, especially Great Britain and Belgium. And then the last 3 are USA is probably gonna be alright, but then Abu Dhabi and Australia I don't have a lot of experience, so I think the calendar doesn't suit me that well, but I mean, I'll try to make it suit me.
Yeah, that's a great mentality. Try and make it suit you. And if you can get a 3rd place finish in a track that doesn't suit you at the start of the season, then, well, come to a track that does suit you and you could dominate. We'll wait and see. But yeah, congratulations on your first podium of the season.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks for coming as well.
Thank you very much, Rudy, for joining us. And I don't think we're going to have anybody else to speak to, unfortunately. So that will definitely be it for the stream. So thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget, like we said, to check out our title sponsor, GT Omega, where you can get 5% off all GT Omega products by using the link in the description and using the code PSGL. Also, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel as well. We want a decent amount of subscribers as well. So make sure you do that. Check out all our other streams that are going on throughout the week. We've got the Cosplay Cup happening tomorrow, which I don't know what the track is. It gets revealed quite short notice for us. So if you want to find out what it is, check out the stream tomorrow at 8 PM UK time. It's on PlayStation and Xbox with some very nice commentators as well. So make sure you check that out. And we also got the opening round of our PC tiers starting on Wednesday. We got PCF2 as they take to the Circuit of Barcelona, Catalonia, with Luke Etheridge and Chris Bucks who take you through the action on that one. And then we obviously got F3, F4, F5, F6 on Thursday, and we've got Richie and Joshua Birch take you through the F3 action on Thursday. And then we got the lower PlayStation tiers that's not going to be streamed as well as they do their first race around Spain. And then we obviously, like we said, we got a week's break, and then in 2 weeks' time, myself and Ada will be taking you through the action at 8 PM UK time around Bahrain. So we'll let you go enjoy the rest of your evening. Have a nice evening. We'll see you in 2 weeks' time for the Bahrain Grand Prix. For myself and Aidan, take care and goodbye.